So good day to all. We are going to discuss the selected topics in information technology. The objective of the course is, it is a seminar type course that will focus on the state of the art in the latest areas of information technology. That indicates that we are going to discuss some of the new topics or the advanced topics in information technology. The strategy used by me are lectures, seminars, students' presentations, interactive exercises, and discussion. But due to the time constraints, we are just avoiding the seminars and students' presentation. Attendance is essential because it's a seminar approach, and that requires your presence and active participation in the class. Discussion is essential, since if you can able to discuss, that will make you to share your ideas and work history with your peers. It will be the central attraction or central learning experience for this course. The grading is divided like external examination 60% and internal examination 40%. The syllabus or the portions which we are going to cover over here is introduction, requirement engineering tools and methods, simulation, virtual reality, internet security, data warehousing and mining, geographic information system, telemedicine and medical informatics, workflow management, qualitative and quantitative methods in information system, global information technology management, and other relevant topics. So we are continuing with the first topic, that is requirement engineering. So before going to requirement engineering, let us tell about what is meant by information system, because requirement engineering is mainly useful for creating or developing information systems. So what is information system? You can tell that information systems are increasingly becoming an integral part of our day-to-day life, to the extent that the welfare of individuals, competitiveness of business concerns, and effectiveness of public institutions often depends upon the correct and efficient functioning of these systems. So, information system becomes very essential for today's environment. And when it comes to requirement engineering, it's one of the most important. Requirement engineering becomes the most important discipline in the system life cycle, and when done well, it will set the foundation for a successful project or program of work, ultimately ensuring that great value is deliverable to the user and other stakeholders. The requirements can be defined as the basis for software products. Requirements engineering is a process which enables us to systematically determine the requirements for a software product. Something which is required, something which is wanted or needed, and there is a huge difference between wants and needs, and it should be kept in mind all the time. So according to IEEE, we can consider requirement engineering as the condition or capacity needed by a user to solve a problem or achieve an objective, or it's a condition or capability that must be met or possessed by a system or system component to satisfy a contract, standard, specification, or other formally imposed documents. So according to that, we can conclude the definition for requirement engineering as it deals with activities which attempt to understand the exact needs of the user or exact needs of the software system to be developed and to translate such needs into precise and unambiguous, that is, ambiguous means confused, unambiguous means not confused, that means clear statements which will subsequently be used in the development of the system, development of the software. So we can, in other words, we can mention that it's a framework. Requirement engineering is a framework for describing the requirement engineering process, which can be constructed by considering mainly three fundamental concerns. They are the concerns of understanding a problem, the concerns of formally describing a problem, and the concern of attaining an agreement on the nature of the problem. So understanding a problem, describing a problem, and making an agreement on the nature of the problem. So each process which we used in the requirement engineering phases or requirement engineering process described in terms of the purpose of the process, the input to the process and its origin, the activities which takes place during the process and techniques, the final and intermediate deliverables, the interaction with other requirement engineering process. So this is a requirement engineering process framework. So we have a user, we have a problem domain, and see here if you are considering like the three process or three activities, first one is elicitation, second one is specification, and third activity that is validation. Third activity that is validation. So what is elicitation? So elicitation, you can tell that it's the first activity that takes place. So elicitation, specification, and validation. So elicitation is the first activity that takes place and continues through the requirement engineering life cycle. There are many reasons for this. One of the most important or one of the most obvious reasons is when you have to solve somebody else's problem, the first thing you have to do is to finding more about it. That means when you get a problem, you need to analyze more about the problem and what are the different solutions which we can able to get, etc., etc. And the purpose of requirement elicitation is to gain the knowledge that is relevant to the problem, which can be used to produce a formal specification of the software needed to solve the problem. So it is generally not an exaggeration. It is not an exaggeration to say that at the end of the requirements engineering phase, the analyst should become an expert on the problem domain. Why? Because he is going to find maximum alternatives for maximum alternative solutions for the given problem. So the the various inputs to the requirement elicitation. So in the real life or in the real-time situation or in reality, we can get the information or we can get the knowledge from the different sources like domain experts, or in other words, we call it as subject matter experts, literature about the domain, existing software, similar software applications, national and international standards which constrains the development of software in that domain, other stakeholders in the larger system. So in requirement engineering or in requirement elicitation, the analyst is generally presented with the task of identify all the sources of requirements knowledge, acquiring the knowledge, deciding on the relevance of the knowledge to the problem in hand, understanding the significance of the elicited knowledge and its impact on the software requirement. Just see here. Okay, it's been given it over here in requirement elicitation. The analyst is presented with the task of identifying all sources of requirement knowledge, acquiring the knowledge, deciding on the relevance, understanding the significance. And just see here, here it is been given very clear that, see, this is the problem which we are having. Okay, so by having this requirement engineering or requirement gathering or solution gathering, we converted that one into a model of this. From there, with the more accuracy, with the more filtering, we come to this conclusion. And from there, with the more and more practices, more and more experiences, we come to this, and finally, we come up with a complete solution or complete solvable methods. Okay. Then comes requirement specification. So what is specification? We can tell that it's a contract between the user and the software designers or software developers, which defines the desired functional behavior of the software artifact. That is like other properties like performance, reliability, understandability, usability, etc., without showing how much functionality is going to be achieved. Then comes okay, before going to requirement validation, so what is the purpose of requirement specification? The specification model or the requirement specification process derives formal software requirements models to be used in subsequent stages of the development, and the purpose of producing a formal specification model in two folds. Like, the specification model is used as an agreement between the software developers and the users on what constitutes the problem which must be solved by the software system. And the second, the specification model is also a blueprint to the development for the software system. Then comes requirement validation. It's an ongoing process from the start till the end, we can tell, from the scratch till the implementation, we can tell, of requirement engineering, which aims to ensure that the right problem is being tackled at any time. In many requirement engineering methods, validation is not considered as a separate activity. It is an activity which included with the requirement engineering, but instead it is taken as a part of the requirement specification. So here, before going to the next level, let me tell you about the requirement validation. Okay, the purpose of the requirement validation. So the need of the validation appears at the moment when a new information is assimilated in the current requirement model. That means a new requirement is added to the current requirement model. For example, when the relevance, validity, consistency, etc. of the new information must be examined, and also when different pieces of information are integrated into a coherent whole. So some of the process of requirement engineering in the context of software development models, the process of software requirement engineering in the context of the following software development model like waterfall model, spiral model, prototyping model, operational model, transformational model, knowledge-based model, domain analysis model, etc. So generally we call it as the life cycle model. So a software life cycle model is a descriptive and diagrammatic representation of the software life cycle. And different life cycle model like the classical waterfall model, iterative waterfall model, prototyping model, evolutionary model, spiral model, etc. So the classical waterfall model is intuitively the most obvious way to develop the software. Though the classical waterfall model is elegant and intuitively obvious, it is not practical model in the sense that it cannot be used in actual software development object. So because of that, this model generally we are using it as a reference model or a theoretical way of describing the software. And then comes the iterative waterfall model. So like iteration, it goes on iteration. Then prototyping model, we are providing a prototype to the user, get their consent, get their suggestions, get their ideas. If there is any modifications, we will take it back and we will make the modification and give it back to them. And then comes evolutionary model. So we can consider evolutionary model as the successive versions model or incremental model. At first, a simple working model is built. Subsequently, it undergoes functional improvements and we keep on adding new functions till the desired system is built. So then comes spiral model. It's a diagrammatical representation of this model, appears like a spiral which with many loops. The exact number of loops in the spiral is not fixed. Each loop of the spiral represents the phase of the software process. So in the spiral model, we have 4 quadrants. First quadrant, we are mainly mentioning about the objective setting. Second quadrant, we are mentioning about, or we are concerned about the risk assessment and the reduction. The third quadrant, we are concerned about the development and validation. Fourth quadrant, we are concerned about review as well as planning. Okay, for semester 8 students, semester 8 computer science students, if you remember, you can refer and go through my previous subject, that is software requirement engineering. So I explained a complete information or a maximum information about it. I covered a most useful information about software requirement engineering in the previous subject which you studied in semester 7. If you're having any doubt, you can go through my YouTube channel. And that's all for today. That's all for this chapter. And we will continue in the next episode or next chapter. Thank you.